Good evening, students, and today we will see a little bit about NMR and then more about the NMR problems. And the problems which I have given, we will discuss in a short while. Before that, I just want to discuss a small concept in NMR, especially with regard to the aromatic rings. So these are some of the common aromatic chemical shift patterns that I have summarized here. As you can see, suppose if we come across an aromatic ring and then it is a monosubstituted aromatic ring, even though it is a monosubstituted aromatic ring, and if that particular substitution is alkyl substituent, then what happens is that we don't see any separate chemical shift peaks in the NMR spectrum. Normally, for a benzene, all protons are said to be equivalent, and therefore we expect a singlet at above 7, and then that particular we don't see basically any split up. But suppose if it is a monosubstituted benzene and if it is having alkyl group, normally we don't see orthoproton and paraproton separately and metaproton separately. So everything comes at one place. All 5 protons will resonate at one place. Okay, so that is the first. And second point is that suppose if our substitution on the benzene ring, if it is a electron donating group, then what happens? If it is electron donating group, then we can expect that the lone pair electrons on this heteroatom can be donated, and then it can participate in the resonance effect, and therefore, as you can see here, the orthoprotons are those sites. Okay, ortho positions will be electron enriched, while the metaprotons will be electron. Orthoprotons as well as the paraprotons will be electron rich, while the metaprotons will be electron deficient. Therefore, such a patterns we can easily observe. How we can observe? So, since whenever electron density is more near the vicinity of a proton, near the vicinity of a magnetically active nuclei, normally we expect such a nuclei is to be found more close to the TMS signal, that is in the upfield region. Whereas if a proton is having less electron density, that will be seen at the downshield region or the downshield region. In this particular situation, where if our heteroatom is electron donating group, this is what exactly happens. The ortho and paraprotons, since they are having more electron density, so those proton signals will be seen somewhat upfield as compared to the metaprotons. And this explanation is totally reverse when we look at the benzene ring which is substituted on with the electron withdrawing group. Okay, suppose if the benzene is having electron withdrawing group, then naturally orthoprotons, electron density on the orthoprotons will be less, and therefore we will see at the higher chemical shift value as compared to metaprotons. Okay, so there is another case where suppose we have a monosubstitution, but this type of withdrawing group is there. For example, like nitro or carbonyl group, this type of functional moieties are there on the benzene ring. Then in that case, since it is basically deactivating the ring, okay, overall the meta and the paraprotons will be seen at slightly higher chemical shift, slightly lower chemical shift value as compared to the orthoprotons, because this effect is very much prompt on the immediate adjacent atoms, right? Because this is a deactivating group. This particular X is equal to Y. Let's say it is a CO. Okay, COCH3, for example, estophenone. Okay, estophenone case that CO is there, it is a deactivating. Therefore, the electron density on the orthocarbon, orthoprotons will be basically less. Therefore, it will be seen at the higher chemical shift value, and then the meta and the paraprotons will be on the slightly reverse side. Now, what will happen if the substituent is halide? Again, halide, you know that it is having the lone pair of electrons, and these lone pair of electrons donate the electrons to the ring. Therefore, the effect is again something different. Okay, sorry. I said wrongly. So the if the substituent is with the halide, then it basically deactivates electronegative atoms, right? So all the halides are basically electronegative atoms. Therefore, the orthoprotons will have a uh, 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 less effect as compared to the metaprotons. Okay, and then some disubstituent case like this one, right? So disubstituents case, there are three different possible situations one can expect if both the substituents are same substituents. Okay, I'm just denoting with X and Y. Suppose in case if X and Y are both are same, for example, xylenes, okay, paraxylene. Just think of two methyl groups on the para positions. So the paraxylenes both are same. Naturally, all these HEA and HB and HB dash, all the protons will be equivalent, and then we will see at one place we will see one particular very intense peak. For 4 protons we will see another peak. Okay, suppose if the electronegativity of X and Y are different, then the second case is okay. If the second case I'm talking about, if both are different, what we see is that different chemical shift values for the uh, okay, for these HA, HA dash, and then HB and HB dash. Okay, if both are different, electronegativity is substantially different, then naturally they will resonate at different positions. Okay, the next one, that if they are similar, what happens? If they are similar, what we will see, that we will see a quartet type of signal, a quartet type of signal, because of the doublet of doublet. If the electronegativity is same, then naturally they will look like they are not like actually they are not actually a doublet of a doublet, but because of the electronegativity, which are very equivalent, somewhat similar with each other, instead of showing entirely different the NMR peaks at different positions, they will resonate very closely, and then naturally the outer peaks intensity gets lower, and then the upper peak, the intensity ratio will be enhanced. So these are some of the common observations with regard to the aromatic ring proton chemical shift values. So please remember that this will be useful while we are working out with the problems. Okay, so I just want to show few examples to substantiate what I have said just now. So this is just a anisole. Anisole, basically it is a methoxy group, and then it is a donating group. As a result, the other protons and paraprotons will be having little higher electron density, so their chemical shift value will be somewhat shielded as compared to the metaprotons. Okay, that's all. And then this is another one, donating group, aniline, the same situation. Okay, the same situation, that you have the NH2 protons are here, and then again the same, the ortho and then paraprotons will have the higher electron density, therefore they will be seen at upper the higher upfield region or the shielded region, while the metaprotons will be seen at the downfield region. And this is another example I mentioned, that X is equal to Y. Okay, it is a monosubstituted benzene ring example, but it is a highly deactivating. Nitro is a highly deactivating. Therefore, the orthoprotons as compared to the para and metaprotons will be highly deshielded as compared to the other case. Then this is a disubstituted compound where you have two different substituents are present, and these electron withdrawing nature is totally different. Therefore, in this case, what you expect is that two different signals for the HA and the HA dash, HA dash, and then HB and HB dash. Okay, so this is one doublet and the other one doublet is here. So naturally, this will be somewhat since it. Hello, hello. Okay, fine. Are you there? Are you listening, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, so you can see here that the chlorine is withdrawing substituent HB, and then HB dash will be downshielded, I mean found in the downshield region, while the other HA and HA dash will be found in the upfield region because it is a donating. Since it is donating and this one is withdrawing, so these effects are quite obvious. Then okay, so that's all I just want to say about the aromatic ring proton signals, and this is very important, which I'm going to discuss now, as far as solving the NMR problem is concerned. Okay, the problem is given to you. Either you will be provided with a running text, the NMR data will be provided, or sometimes, you know, we used to provide the NMR spectrum so that you will get a better view about the NMR data. So both are possible, and nowhere, only in MSc General Lab we normally show the NMR spectrum to solve the problems. But if you just look at the research papers, we don't show the NMR spectrum in the main text unless it is really, really important. Usually nowadays, the NMR spectrum will be shown in the supporting data. Okay, nobody will show its data in the spectrum in the NMR research paper in the main text, because older days, recording one particular NMR spectrum of a one compound is a great job. So therefore, those days it is a fancy thing that to showcase their work that they have the NMR confirmation. But nowadays it is quite easy, and anybody can do the NMR spectrum. And that too, we have a lot of synthetic protocols are developed, and anybody can prepare some molecule, and then easily they can take the NMR spectrum. So now it becomes, it's very important. Definitely it is very important. But how we are showing the data in the main text is that normally it is shown as a running text. The running text information will be like this. Okay, for example, it will be written like, if it is a proton, for example, if it is a proton and a mass spectrum. So this is the notation, or this is a general pattern of to show the NMR spectrum. Okay, this is a proton NMR. They will write it, and they will also write it in which solvent it is recorded. Okay, CdCl3. Okay, chloroform 3. This is one information they give. They also mention, sorry. So this is a proton NMR. And then CdCl3 chloroform. Okay. And then next thing is that we used to write down what is the NMR spectrum frequency at which it is operating, whether it is a 400 or 300, that information will be there. Okay, that is 400 megahertz, let's say, for example. Okay, so this is 400 megahertz. So this is the basic information about the NMR spectrometer, and then whether it is which nuclei spectrum it is, whether it is a proton or carbon or nitrogen, phosphorus, fluorine, etc. That information will be there, and they start writing about the data now. How they write it? Okay, so you can see here that this region precisely they will mention. Okay, in this case you can see here on the upfield region you can find a triplet. This triplet is roughly in between 0.8 to 0.9, I would say. Okay, 0.9. So this is the a triplet. Okay, so this is the region that we have a triplet. The triplet notation is
Sir?
yeah.
it is a triplet, then why it is not following the intensity ratio? I mean, according to Pascal's scale, the
Uh,
two term.
okay. So triplet, doublet, all those things theoretical information, but in the reality that we have a secondary effects that we will discuss later. Okay, the triplet, doublet, quartet, quintet, all these things are primary first order effects. Okay, so if it is following the Pascal triangle, it will show. But then there are situations where uh, no, it is. So and so triplet is primarily because of a methyl substituent, right? That methyl with which it is connected, depending upon that, we can have a secondary effects. So because of the secondary effect, we don't see perfect doublets, perfect triplets, all those things. Okay. So there will be slight difference, but then you can just count the number of peaks in that particular multiplet. Okay, whether it is a 3 peaks or 4 peaks or those things, you can just count it. That information is fine. That you have to conclude is a triplet. Yeah. So in a ideal triplet is ideal case. Okay, Kuntal, triplet showing a triplet is a ideal case. So they will write like, that is one, the triplet they will write, and then they will also write 3H. Okay. So in the bracket, they normally write it. Okay. Initially, it is a 0.8 to 0.9. Okay. So this is a chemical shift value. They write it. I think I forgot one more thing also. After writing that instrumentation information, they also write it chemical shift in ppm. They write this also. Okay, so that is the standard format of denoting the data. So after that, they will put a column and they start writing all these things. Okay, and then they will start. There is another one, 1.2 to 1.3. So 1.2 to 1.3. Okay, you have a doublet D, and then how many protons? That information they give it. For example, it's a 2H. Okay, that information they give it. So likewise, they represent the data. So nobody represent the NMR spectrum of a given compound in any of the research paper. But some of the organic research paper where people are really describing something based on the NMR, such NMR spectrum will be shown in the main text itself. Okay. Now the point I just want to draw from this discussion is very simple. Okay, given a chance, whether it is a data or it is a spectrum, we are supposed to interpret the data and find out the NMR spectrum. Okay, so that's the idea, or that's the goal of the NMR spectroscopy, or in fact, overall, that is the goal of this particular organic spectroscopy, the course. Okay, now how do we basically solve the problem is something that I'm going to show with an example, and this is the NMR spectrum. Okay, so we will proceed in the conventional manner, but you should be prepared in the text in the examination. The people, the examiner can ask by showing a spectrum or by giving the NMR spectrum. Anything is possible. But nowadays, most of the people don't prefer to show the spectrum. But in a general MSc class, normally we will show the spectrum. That's not an issue. Okay, so let's say that we are going to how to solve this type of data. Okay, to solve this NMR data, we need certain information. That information will be provided by the examiner itself. So you don't have to worry about it. So I mentioned about the instrument and the solvent and the at what frequency the NMR spectrum it was actually operating. So these things will be there already. Understand? So we need not to worry about it, but those numbers and those values are really important to solve the problem. You have to keep in mind. Now, let us forward to understand this particular thing. So you have a triplet here, and there is one there is one doublet here, so that doublet is correspond to 3H. So this information will be there. So here I have already mentioned that this doublet is for how many protons, or the triplet is for how many protons, and this multiplet is for how many protons. That information I already given. But in a running test, it will be there like this. But you have to assume that you have to basically take those values while interpreting. Okay, because integration will tell you that total how many protons should be there in that given NMR spectrum. Okay, now so having understood the data either from the data NMR data or from the picture or the spectrum which is given supplied to you, you should be able to solve the spectrum. Now you can see here that we are seeing a triplet, and then that corresponds to 3H. So a triplet which corresponds to 3H is quite obviously it is a methyl, right? Then there is a doublet. You can see here there is a clear doublet, 1:1 doublet, and then the NMR integration pattern is giving information that this doublet is for 3 protons, 3 protons. Okay. So now you tell me what kind of fragment it is. What kind of fragment it is? So
CH2, CH3.
I have a doublet, and then the doublet is basically from 3 protons. In under what circumstances that we come across, we expect a doublet that correspond to 3 protons.
CH3.
CH?
CH3.
Yes. So this is of that fragment. Initially, we got one methyl, okay, from this 3H3. Okay, let me write here. So this is one methyl, right? Now what I'm saying, the next information it is showing like 3H, it is for 3H, and then there is a doublet. There is a doublet means this carbon should have 1 proton, right? Right? Are you following what I'm saying? So you have another CH3 which is connected with this kind of fragment, CH3CH. Only then this will give a doublet, otherwise it won't give. Can you verify this? So this is a CH3 proton, and adjacent, if it is having a CH group connected, then this 3 protons can show a doublet, right? Because the non-equivalent protons on the adjacent carbon is 1. So according to the n+1 formula, so it is 2, right? So it is correctly matching. Okay, now we got 2 fragments. Please remember that the first fragment we got methyl, the other fragment we got this. Okay, now there is another one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is a quintet. There is a quintet. Quintet, when do we expect? So quintet we expect when there are 4 non-equivalent protons are there on the adjacent carbon atom or carbon atoms. It might be 1 carbon atom, okay, or it might be 2 carbon atoms. Okay, so it may be both sides it can be connected, or maybe the one which we are referring that can connect with another one, or on the other hand it can connect to either sides. Both are possible. So you can just imagine a situation where you have a quintet, and that quintet is primarily coming from 2 protons. So when it will happen?
Sir, from 1 carbon, how it is possible? Maximum there should be 3 hydrogen CH3 group, otherwise it will be methane, isolated methane. Maybe there is CH2, CH2, CH2 like group.
That is what you have to think, Kuntal. So when do we expect in organic chemistry there are 2 protons that gives a quintet signal? More importantly, why I'm selling all these things, just remember that you have to think only with, around the alkyl groups, not around any other substance, because that the region what I'm talking, it is very close. This is the alkyl region, right? Chemical shift table, when we look at that region, is primarily belongs to the alkyl protons, right? Therefore, we have to think around that region. Suppose if you are in this region above 7, then you have to think about the aromatic and then aromatic ring substance, etc. Right? But in this case, it is quite obvious that it is, just from starting from point 8 to maybe 1.6 or 7. All these three signals we can see, three cluster of signals, 2H quintet and also 3H doublet and 3H triplet we can see. Right. I think so for me, this is something like this, right? So if I have a on the skeleton, you can just write down and think of it. So already we got this type of signal, right? Suppose one side already you have a CH3. On the other side, if you have let's say this type of signal. Okay. On the other side, you have this type of signal. Can it give these two protons? For example, you have a CH2 functional group on the skeleton, and then one side it has 3 protons, the other side it has 1 proton. In that case, N is equal to 4. I'm just thinking, I don't know the answer. But what I'm thinking, yeah,
Said the methyl protons and the CH protons are different, so we can't count the n equals to 4 like that.
what is that?
The methyl protons will split into quartet and the CH proton will split into doublet differently.
Oh, this proton you're talking about. This
Yeah,
proton, huh?
that CH hydrogen will split into doublet.
Yeah. So this is what you have to critically think about it. Okay. While working with the problem, first you have to identify the fragments. Please remember that. Don't put your mind into everything at once, because that will create a problem. Initially, you try to think of some kind of fragments, reasonable fragments. That is the first part in assigning the peaks in the NMR spectrum or in any spectroscopy. That is the first part. So you have to assign the peaks, or you have to assign the values which are given to you in the data or in a spectrum. So after giving that, then you try to join the information such that everything actually matches well with that. Okay, that is what I am trying to say. Suppose in case if you don't come across any such fragment, you just leave it as such. For example, you have some difficulty here, right, in understanding. Just leave it that. Then let's look at here. This is actually, if you count it, it's a small thing. It is a sextet. Okay, there are 6 peaks are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 small lines are there, and then which correspond to one, which correspond to 1 proton. So 1 proton which correspond to that is obviously this type of signal. From the above information, I'm just connecting. Maybe this can be this type of thing. For example, I have this type of signal CH, and one side, yeah, you can see here sometimes some information will be given, additional information will be given in the insert. You can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this particular small multiplet is high expanded or zoomed, and then it is shown here. So I can expect this type of fragment, right? Because I'm getting a sextet. I am getting a sextet. Sextet means that I must have at least 5 non-equivalent protons on the carbon atoms. Only then I can see this reference proton can split into those many lines, 6 lines. If I have a 5, then on the adjacent carbon atom, then the referring proton can split into 6. That's what I'm trying to say, right? So this is this type of fragment. Okay. Now another subtend you have. So another set of protons are here that, these are very close by and then above 7. You can see here. Then all these things, it is if you integrate the peak area, it is 5 protons. So when you have a 5 protons above 7, so it is quite obvious that it should be a monosubstituted benzene.
Alkyl substituted benzene.
Yeah, so it is alkyl substituted, or maybe some other substituted. We will come to that. We will explore that. But initially, your job is to assign the above the given NMR peaks to the respective some fragments, some known fragments in the organic chemistry. That is the first and foremost job you have to do as soon as you see the data or a spectrum. And afterwards, you try to rejoin these fragments such a way that your data actually match well with the structure which is you are trying to predict. Are you getting my point? So now you got the fragments. One methyl we got, another methyl CH we got it, and then a CH2 we got it. So all these fragments you try to connect it such a way that the NMR data which is given well matches with that. Okay, that's what I am trying to say. So the answer is already given here, as you can see here. So this triplet will start from the left, and then this is a triplet, and we already explored, I already explained this, that when it is having at least 2 carbon atoms, okay, on the adjacent only, then it will split into 3, right? So it is quite obvious. Then I have a doublet, right? I have a doublet. So the doublet, sorry, yeah, I have a doublet. So this doublet is primarily coming from this type of fragment. This also we predicted, right? A CH3, if it is having a fragment on the adjacent carbon atom, one proton, then it is possible that it can split into 2 lines. So this is another fragment that we thought of. Now the other thing that I am thinking is that a quintet signal is generally seen when you have a 4 different protons on the adjacent carbon atoms. So you can split different ways, like CH2 CH2. For example, this is CH2, and then let's say this side you have CH2, this side you have CH2. In that situation also you will get a quintet, but still you have to just think. You have to judiciously think which one actually suit your situation. So accordingly, you have to keep it, because if you keep the other way, you will get something different information. The splitting pattern won't match. Okay, so that's what you have to remember always. And then the sextet is obviously because of this type of fragment, which we already predicted, right? Okay, and then this is 7 after the chemical shift after 7 ppm. That is obviously the monosubstituted benzene. So all the things that you try to put together, okay, it's like solving the puzzle. I'm sure that most of you would have played with the Sudoku and then various word puzzles. So it's like combine them, all those things, such a way that you get some decent structure, and that structure again you go back and see they interpret the data. Now all these things you can put many ways. It's obvious, it's like organic synthesis. You start from A and then to reach B. Naturally you can have n different ways, but in organic chemistry we always follow the short path, and then more economical, and then more green. So there are some of the rules are there. Likewise here also, that you can, when you are given with a puzzle, you can put in different ways, but then ultimately you have to see that the fragmented, so the arrived structure is matching your data or not. That is something that very, very crucial. Okay, you just put together and then try to see that whether you can get a proper structure or not. Okay, so what I'm doing, that I'm trying to keep this way. Okay, so there is a CH2 CH2 sorry, CH3, I'm putting like this, and then one side one methyl I'm giving, because this methyl, you can see the first one on the extreme right hand side, it is having how many? It is having a triplet. Okay, and the next one, it is a doublet. Okay, the next one is doublet, which is very close to 1. So obviously the first triplet on the extreme right hand side is this one, because it's a triplet. So obviously that is this type of ethyl group. Then the next doublet is definitely, it should be this type of one, right? You are seeing a doublet after 1.2 or something like that. So naturally, a methane proton, you just recollect. So methyl protons will be around 1. If it is alkyne molecule, if you are talking about, it's around 1 or within 1. But if it is a methylene, then its chemical state was slightly upfield, downfielded. Then if it is a methane proton, that is CH protons, will be slightly again downfielded. Okay, so you have to just think of all these, you have to just remember all these points before interpreting the data. So now that is that part. Now just I have connected all of them in this fashion, and primarily and ultimately, which I am actually connecting to a mono substituted benzene. Now what I do in the last part, I just will reanalyze everything and then see whether the given data really fits or not. Okay, what you have to do now, you have arrived at, just trying to keep everything together, put together. Now you got a structure. After getting this structure, now you just look at whether this structure is again is consisting with the data which is given. That is always important. What I have seen most of the students in a hurried manner, so they will do up to here, they will just last minute they start doing the problems, and then they arrive some fragments, they just leave it like that. Or some students will go little further, and they just arrive some structure and they leave it, and then they go. There are students, really many students which I have seen, they really think twice and then they try to see whether the data is fitting or not. Only then it is complete. Only then it is complete, and then it will give you a proper result, and you will be able to get good marks also. Otherwise, just arriving at some structure, it won't help. But you have to go back and check whether the given data is matching with your data, the arrived molecular structure or not. That you have to ensure always. Okay, so what is there? You can see here that there is a methyl group. That methyl group is having it is split into triplets, therefore it must have this one. So there is one thing is there. Now there is a methane proton. This methane proton is actually having surrounded by, it is surrounded by this side 2 protons, and then the other side 3 protons. Okay, so definitely it should show a sextet. Okay, and the sextet is there. Yes,
These 3 protons and these 2 protons, they will behave like equivalent.
which 3?
Structurally, these CH3 protons and this CH2, these 2 protons are not equivalent. Then why they will behave like equivalent proton?
Structurally, I don't get your point actually.
That this sextet, I am talking about this sextet.
Okay, you are talking about this methane, that is methane proton you're talking.
Yes.
You're talking about this CH proton, right?
Yes.
Okay, tell. Then
in one side it has CH3, another side it has CH2 CH3. Then why is CH3 and CH2 will behave similarly?
So the difference in their I mean, the electron density of this CH2 and this CH2 is not very different, and that is one of the primary reason that you asked me a question, right, sir? Why you are not getting a perfect triplet? This is primarily because the interaction with one with the other is totally different. So naturally, we don't get a perfect the Pascal triangle NMR intensities. Yes, you're right. The CH2, and then one side you have a CH2, the other side is CH3. The interaction is different, and if both are same, then interaction, that is different issue. And in such a case is basically ideal case, and you will get indeed the NMR peak intensities as expected from the Pascal triangle quotients. Okay. But in this case, as you can see, the CH2 is different, CH3 is different. Therefore, that is why this peak intensity are not exactly matching with the Pascal triangle intensities. Okay, so I think this type of example is just look at the number of peaks first, and then don't really too much worry about the intensities at this stage. Okay, you can see these are called secondary effect. That's what I'm saying actually. Secondary effects means, if you are getting NMR peak intensity, intensities exactly matching with the Pascal triangle or the binomial expansion coefficients, then we say it is a first order spectrum. Otherwise, we say it's a second order spectrum. So these are actually this CH proton sextet is not exactly a sextet, primarily because of the secondary effect. Similarly is the case of this one. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this sextet is for this, and then now CH3, one CH3 is a doublet, so this doublet is already there. Okay, so now you actually 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 different type of protons are there, and then so all these 4 non-equivalent protons should give 4 different NMR peaks as per our prediction theoretically. Then we are getting 4 different. This is 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Okay, so this is perfectly fine. And then this side that you have a phenyl ring, that phenyl ring thing is here. So this is perfectly matching, right? So this is how that one should work with the problems. Okay, the primary step in solving a problem is this. First, you have to identify the fragments based on the knowledge of the chemical shift values, which are listed in the standard NMR chemical shift tables. That is the first part. Then later on, after getting some fragments, you try to connect it and try to uh, uh, arrive at some molecular structure. And then again, that molecular structure, you think of it is a molecule that is given to you. If that is the case, then you try to predict such a structure NMR peaks, and then if that is exactly matching with the given spectrum, your job is done. That is perfect. Otherwise, what you do, you go back and you puzzle. When you're solving the puzzle, okay, if the number Sudoku, I think I'm sure that most of you would have played a Japan game, Sudoku. The Sudoku, if number 7 is not fitting here, then I go back and see the number 6, whether it fits here, vertical, horizontal, and then within a square box, we try to check it, that value, total value should be 10. So all these parameters, we check it, right? So such a way, now you have a fragments. Once you have a fragment, you rearrange the fragment such a way that you get these, you basically replicate the NMR spectrum which is supplied to you, right? So if you are able to do this last part, then your answer is perfect and yourself will really satisfy, and that will give you more marks. Okay, so this is how basically one should work out with the NMR problems. Now what I do, I will just go back and to give the answers, essentially the answers. And if you have got any answer, you just let me know. Can you see this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you see problem number 1, all of you? Do you have any answer for this? Can you suggest any one of you?
Xylene.
It is xylene. No, answer is no. Now what I do, I will just give some clues. Okay, then you have to give me some answers. Okay, now I say it is a first and foremost clue I am going to give with regard to the problem number 1. It is a di-substituted aromatic compound. That is the first clue I will give. It is a di-substituted aromatic compound.
Parachloroaniline.
Very good. Who is this? Tell me, who is this?
Srilekha.
Very good.
Srilekha, sir.
Yes, you have exactly followed my lecture. So my lecture 1 problem I already discussed. It is exactly that compound. It is a parachloroaniline. Okay, so these protons is singlet, very broad. It's not very sharp. This is for the amine protons, and these are for the aromatic protons. The two different doublets. Okay, so again you can notice here that the the inner lines are equivalent, right? The inner lines of the two different doublets are actually almost matching. Outer lines are something different, and again you don't see the perfect doublet nature. Again you don't see a perfect doublet nature. So this is again we can actually attribute this feature to the secondary effects. Okay, so they are interacting. The nuclei in the adjacent carbon atoms are basically interacting, so they don't follow the value. Why they don't follow the Pascal triangle coefficient? That is primarily because of the secondary effects. When the chemical shift value difference is very less as compared to the coupling constant, then normally we expect the this type of secondary effect. So this is the first and foremost problem, is the parachlorosilane. The second problem, so I have basically 3 NMR peaks, and all appear to be singlets. Then one at 2 ppm, delta ppm, the other at delta ppm 5, and then the other at 7.4 or something like that. Okay, so what could be the compound?
Sir, ethyl benzene. Ethyl benzene.
Methyl benzene, ethyl benzene.
Ethyl benzene.
Ethyl benzene. I don't know, but I'll give you a clue. You just try to put around. You just try to. Normally, I think what I do, I'll give. It's a aromatic compound, obviously. So there are, you have one peak after 7, which means that definitely it is a aromatic compound. And the formula I will give in this case. Let's see that whether you will interpret that thing to a molecular structure or not. That is one way. Second way is that you can also just try to interpret the peaks, assign the peaks to some fragments, and then find out. I think that is the best way. Just now we discussed that description, so that is the best way to proceed. So we have 3 peaks. Let us try to solve by that method. You have a peak at 2. So what could be that peak? I would say it is for 3 protons. You can note down this is as a clue. The peak at 2 is primarily comes from 3 protons.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I think so. Para-acyl-phenol.
Para-acyl-phenol. No. No, it is not para-acyl-phenol. What is the formula?
Formula.
You can just talk about, no problem. You just talk.
Okay, sir.
Benzene ring on the
Formula is C8H9O2.
C8HN. No, it is wrong.
H9O2.
No. C8 C8 or C9?
C8.
Then it is wrong. Okay, I think what we do, we try to interpret the data according to the fragments. So first and foremost, I am giving a clue that the first peak on, I mean, the extreme right-hand side at around 2 ppm is primarily comes from 3 protons. So that is the clue I am giving. And the other one I am giving, like the peak at 5 primarily comes from 2 protons.
Sir. Sir.
Hello? Yeah.
Benzene CH2, then tart
Yeah.
butyl group.
No.
No, it is no.
No, this is what I'm saying. See, you have to basically, you will get some crazy ideas, but the crazy idea, whether it's fitting the data or not, that you have to verify. I think let us go systematically. So around 5, we have, I'm saying, I'm giving the answer, I'm giving the clue, it is for 2 protons, okay? This is for 3, and this is for 2 protons, and this is for 5 protons, obviously, right? Now, Kuntal is saying, benzene CH2 tertiary butyl group, he's telling. How can be tertiary butyl group? It should be 9, no? Tertiary butyl means the methyl will have 9 protons, no?
Yes, sir. Actually,
saying,
both peaks are singlet. That's why I can't understand that it should not have any neighboring hydrogen.
This is very good. So you have actually thought very nicely. That is what you should think. You know, you say, I'm saying it is a 2 protons, and the 2 protons actually seem highly deshielded. So when it is possible,
Benzene CH2, then an acetylene group, then another methyl.
no, it is not the way to think. First thing is that, you know, whenever you see as 2 protons, highly deshielded region, that means normal, what is the typical range of the CH2 protons? What is the typical range of the CH2 protons? That is 1.2 to 1.4, something like that, around that region. But you are seeing these methylene protons at 5 ppm. That means it's highly deshielded. So when that happens, this happens only when, if that is directly connected to a heteroatom, highly withdrawing group. Otherwise, it is not possible.
Ether group. Ether group.
Yes. So it has to be, whenever you see highly deshielded methylene protons, that primarily basically comes from, it is connected with a oxygen atom. Oxygen is a highly withdrawing group. So therefore, its chemical shift will shift. It will go about 3.5. Usually, if it is just connected with some kind of chloro, bromo, this kind of thing, it won't go that much deshielding region. But this is going beyond 4, means there is some. It is not just a heteroatom, but it's not that definitely the heteroatom or the withdrawing atom, but something else also added. The something else is basically anisotropy.
Hello,
Diamagnetic
sir.
anisotropy. Yeah.
I think the answer is para-amino acyl benzene. Para-amino acyl benzene.
No, there is no question of 2 substituents. It is only monosubstituent compound.
Benzene CH2O CH3. Benzene CH2O CH3.
No, I'll give the answer now. Just wait. Okay. So now, if our compound is if the methylene group is chemical shift value is crossed beyond 4 means it is not one effect, but it is rather because of the two effects. What are those two effects? If there is a diamagnetic anisotropy in addition to that one, then that can happen. How do I know that there is a diamagnetic anisotropy? Because this information I am getting, right? So above 7, I can see a proton, then it really confirms me that there is a benzene ring. Okay, above 7 means there is a benzene ring. So definitely that proton, this particular proton, not only connected to a highly withdrawing group, but also connected to a benzene ring. Only then we see such a high de-shielding region. We will find it in a highly de-shielded region. Otherwise, it is impossible. Otherwise, if it is just connected with a heteroatom, then actually it will be somewhere here, this region. Okay, so those are the clues, and then the answer actually it is. And then again, you can also find that it is a singlet. Methyl group is a singlet. Okay, it is a 3 proton. I already given the clue, and it is a singlet. 3 protons, singlet. Methyl group usually should be found here, but then it is shifted almost to 1 ppm. It is down shielded, mainly because that it is connected to with the drawing group. Only then it happens. So the answer for this compound is benzene ring. Okay, on a benzene ring, CH2 O C double bond O CH3. I am repeating the same thing. On benzene ring, you have a CH2 which is connected to a O oxygen atom, which is connected with a CO, which is connected with a CH3. Now you can just basically recheck again whether this data will fit into that or not. Definitely it will fit. The methyl one, I can see here, it is connected with the carbonyl group, which is electron withdrawing group. Therefore, its chemical shift value will be shifted. Okay, and then this benzene connected CH2 proton one side, CH2 proton one side connected to benzene ring, other side it is connected to the oxygen ring. Therefore, its chemical shift value again it will be found in a highly de-shielded region, and since it is obviously it is a monosubstituted, therefore all the 5 protons will be seen at one particular position. So that is for this particular peak. Okay. Now, what is this compound? So we don't have much time. I give you the answer, but you give me the structure. So this is basically is the same chemical formula of the previous compound. It is the same chemical formula of the previous compound, but some slight difference is there. Okay, it's a kind of isomer. Can you just give me the answer? It is isomer of the previous compound, this spectrum. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you give the answer for this? It is the isomer of the previous compound, I said. Anyway, any answer? Manju. Manju.
Hello, sir.
Can you tell me what is the answer?
Sir, C6H5COOCH3.
C6H5
COOCH3.
No, I said it is isomer of that one. Any other answer, Deepa?
Hello.
Yeah, can you tell me what is the answer for this?
C6H5 CH2COH.
Very good, excellent. Your answer is right. I said already isomer, right? So this is the one actually will nicely fit the data. The problem here, see, it is not a left side extreme peak. This is for aromatic compound, and so that is there. But then the other two proton signals are actually merged together, so you don't see any differentiation. Either it is a doublet, or you can't say it is a doublet or triplet or anything. So in that respect, the one answer which Deepa has given, that is a right answer. So in that case also, you are supposed to get two signals, two different signal, one for the methylene, the other one for the methyl group. But then methyl and methylene, both groups are actually merged together, mainly because in that structure, the methyl group is connected to a highly withdrawing oxygen atom. Therefore, it is highly deshielded. Methyl group, which is connected with the diary oxygen atom, will be found above 3. That's the reason. Okay, and then CH2, which is connected one side the CO, the other side is the benzene ring, and both these effects actually shift further the compound. Therefore, it will be seen at that region, and both are mixed. Therefore, you can't make any differentiation. Okay, so that's all.
But
The
what
third.
about the acid hydrogen?
What is this acid? There is no acid. Why you are
This
saying acid?
C COOH group is there?
No. See what the answer is. CH3. Sorry, the benzene ring, CH2. Okay, and C double bond O CH3. There is no acid. Why acid coming? Because the previous compound you have acid.
No.
Then how can you make a acid from this? Okay, it's not possible. Then what about this?
So here we can see an acid group.
Very good. Who is this?
And Mary, sir.
Oh, very nice. Your house construction is there?
Yes, almost over, but some more works are left here.
Okay, let us try to understand this. COH is there. What?
Sir, whether it's propanoic acid?
No. It is somewhat difficult to answer, but there are certain features you have to remember. That is the purpose of discussing this particular problem. There is a multiplet. You can see here. This multiplet is actually, there are 7 numbers. 7 peaks are there. If there are 7 peaks, what could be the fragment?
Sir, is it isopropanoic acid?
Propanoic acid or butanoic acid?
I mean 2-methyl propanoic acid.
Can you just give the formula?
CH3.
No, it is a CH.
No, that is CH.
See, this is basically a isopropyl group. Okay, there itself you have 3 carbon atoms, right?
Sir,
Isopropyl. What is the isopropyl group?
There.
Isopropyl means CH and CH3 twice. That is isopropyl, right?
Yeah.
And if that fragment is connected with the acid, that is the compound. So it should be isobutanoic acid, not propanoic acid. Got it?
Sorry, sir.
Okay, so that is the compound. Okay, so we don't have much time. I'm just running out of time to complete. What could be this answer? What could be the answer for this? Okay, this is basically butyrophenone. Okay, I'm giving the answer. You can just speak, and then you can answer yourself. You need not to do anything. But this is a butyrophenone. Butyrophenone. That's all. And then you assign these peaks, and then you can answer yourself. Got it? So fine. I think with this we will stop here for today, and then the next Saturday morning I shall take the class. And if you have any doubts, probably you can to post it in the common group, or maybe you can write to me. I shall answer. Okay. All right. Surya.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You understood anything today?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's
Good.
a bit difficult. I think later when I read, I will understand more.
Oh, a bit difficult. Why do you feel so? Where is the difficulty?
So I am getting confused about understanding these peaks. Last question section, I didn't get much. Like,
Last question or session.
yeah.
Yeah, where exactly can you just say, okay, this is where I did not understand. Maybe I can repeat.
Um,
Which
so the
problem?
last,
Which problem you are talking? Second
so
problem,
the
third problem.
second problem,
See, the second problem, what I'm saying, see, I have already explained to you how to solve the problem, the methodology that we should adopt to solve the NMR spectrum. The methodology is very simple. First and foremost thing that you have to assign the NMR peaks to some fragments. So
yes,
this requires you have to understand the NMR chemical shift values and remember and memorize. That is what I have been practicing, and I have been telling many times to all of you. So unless you remember, the assignment is the primary step. If you don't do, then you can't do anything. Okay, so the
yes.
first part in assigning the NMR spectrum
So
is
I
you
think
have
it
to.
was the third problem. I got confused.
Okay, the third problem. Okay, the third problem, what I said was this problem, second problem, this problem, both are isomers, I said, right?
Yes,
The first problem, what I given was it is like a benzene ring connected to CH2, which is connected to carbonyl group, which is connected, sorry,
yes,
which is connected to, sorry, CH2 connected to a oxygen atom, connected to carbonyl group, connected to CH3. That is the compound I have given. Now I am saying for this compound, it is slightly different. This oxygen atom, earlier it is close to CH2.
yes,
That you take out and keep the oxygen atom on the adjacent to the methyl group.
yes,
When you keep there, then what happens, that methyl group, since it is directly connected with the oxygen atom, then its a chemical shift value will be highly de-shielded.
yes, yes, sir.
Okay, that is point number
Yes,
one.
sir.
Point number two, therefore it will go this region. Normal region is around this, methyl proton normal is around 1. But because of
Yes,
direct connection with the highly withdrawing substituent, it has gone beyond 3. Second thing is that you have the methylene group, that is CH2 group, connected to one side the anisotropic benzene ring, the other side CO.
yes, sir.
Okay, so it is
Yes, sir.
connected with the benzene ring and CO one side. Therefore, its normal region is around 1.2. Methylene should be 1.2. Okay, methylene group is, this is the region. 1.2 to 1.8, it will come anywhere between. If it is a normal alkane compound. But here you have one side, one aromatic ring is there. So diamagnetic anisotropy will contribute to some extent one side. The other one again, that CO is there, carbonyl functional group. You remember again, carbonyl functional group also contribute to diamagnetic anisotropy. So two
Yes,
side you have a magnetic anisotropy, that also will shift to further downfield. So these two peaks actually, the NMR peaks of methylene protons and methyl protons both will be coupled together, and you don't see any kind of actual triplet or doublet or singlet kind of thing.
yes, sir. I
Okay,
understand now.
so this is actually these two problems I have given in one CSIR problem. I think very long back when I was writing CSIR exam, that they give this one. So they write all this information. There are two isomers, this that and that, and then they will ask it, what are those chemical structures. They will give some clues, and then you have to rearrange everything. Okay, in one case you are getting
Yes, sir.
3, but in one case you are getting 3 clear peaks. The other case you are getting 2 peaks. Essentially, this is 2 peaks, right? You feel that is only 2 peaks, but then one peak consists of more than consists of another peak. Total, it has got 3 peaks actually.
Yes, sir. I
Okay.
get it now. Thank you, sir.
Okay, right. Okay, fine. If you have anything, you can just post it. I think this is all for now, for today from my side. And I hope all your parents have joined in the WhatsApp group, right? PTA parents WhatsApp group. Did any one of your missed out, father or mother missed out in joining that group? Ashwati.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Lakshmi, I think we should ask Lakshmi, secretary, daughter. Lakshmi, you are not there, huh? Then I should report directly to your mother.
Sir,
Lakshmi is not there. Kuntal, tell me.
sir, in exam, will you give the chemical formula or you will give in combine with carbon 30 or mass?
It depends. It's not one thing. Certainly, the data won't be like this. I will give some clues also that you have to basically use those clues in solving the problems.
Okay, sir.
Certain clues will be given. I did not give the data. I just wanted you guys to think of some fragments. You know, if you work out in predicting the fragments, the next job will be easy. If you're stuck in the primary step itself, you know, your job will be very difficult. That's the reason I did not give any clue. If I don't give any clue, and if you are still able to information, that's a good thing. So we will practice that way instead of giving some clues. Naturally, in any exam, they will give some clues. I will also give some clues in terms of providing some NMR data, IR data, maybe mass data. Okay, so or the coupling constant, or maybe some integration values. So these are some of the clues. Chemical formula. So these are some of the things that we will give. Chemical formula nobody gives actually, but supporting data is normally provided to the students so that they can work out easily. That I will give in the final examination, but in the internals I don't give any kind of clues. So you guys have to really practice. Fine, I think this is all from my side, and bye bye for today. Thank you.